to add myself to the stage there. Hello, good afternoon from the King Power Stadium. Good morning, good evening, good night from wherever in the world you might be watching ahead of what is a big old game, isn't it? And I feel like we say that quite often at the moment, don't we? But yeah, this is a pretty significant game between two teams who have aspirations, of course, for being back in the Premier League, having done so last year. I also need to make sure, just so I know, these are new headphones, or newish. I've been given these because the audio quality on the last ones have been rubbish, so let me know that you can hear me okay. That would be great. But fingers crossed the audio quality is pretty good here. And we get some quality on the pitch as well. These are two teams, I said, that should have aspirations for making an immediate return to the Premier League. At the moment, it's probably going better for Ipswich than it is for Leicester, but they're still, there's a lot of quality, as we'll get into, with this team that the Foxes have. Let's talk about them to start off with. In terms of where Leicester are at the moment, obviously a lot hanging over them in terms of the financial side of things, potential punishments, a points deduction that could be looming over them. We'll have to wait and see what happens with them. Not being able to be as active in the transfer market, and on the pitch it's not really worked out too well either. So yeah, in that sense, I think that the vibe's been pretty negative around here, hasn't it? Let's be honest, in terms of what we've seen so far. And it probably started off quite well in a way. Maybe the results were better than the performances, because they beat Sheffield Wednesday here on opening day. Yes, it was 10-man Sheffield Wednesday who could hardly field the team, but they still won that game late on. They went to Charlton, somehow won that one after losing at Preston, beat Birmingham in probably one of their better performances of the season so far. And then this kind of string of draws that they had, drawing the likes of Coventry, West Brom, Wrexham, Portsmouth here. But ever since losing at Hull, it's been pretty negative. Let's be honest. Since then, they've won a handful of games, beat Norwich away from home, but especially around that time, who wasn't beating Norwich away from home, beat Stoke here, and then have also last weekend gone and won at Derby County. But despite that, you look at what the fan reaction is. I watched clips of their game when they were beaten here by Blackburn Rovers, and the negativity and the empty seats and things like that. And there's definitely some poor reaction from the 2-2 draw against Bristol City, where they threw away that 2-goal lead. So an opportunity for Ipswich for sure. And we're going to have a little look through the team, which again, I think we have on a banner. This is pre-prepared. There it is. Here is your Ipswich Town lineup as the Leicester team come to warm out. We've been big on Christmas music here at the King Power Stadium, so I hope you can hear me over the boys are back in town. 4-2-3-1, two changes to the Ipswich Town team that beat Stoke 1-0 in midweek. Again, the core of it stays the same. The back line with Walton keeping his place in goal, Furlong, O'Shea, Kickford and Davis now starting to feel like the consistent back line that we're seeing after a bit of chopping and changing, primarily at left centre back, but even at right back as well. It's good to have that kind of solid back line that you can rely upon and play week in, week out. The midfield too, Matasira and Taylor, again at the moment feeling like the best options. I really like what I've seen from Jens Kuster off the bench in the latter stages of games. So having those two, Taylor playing really well at the moment, I think makes the most sense. And then the front line, where things have been rotated a little bit. We're going to see Jaden Philogene keep his place on the left. Marcelino Nunez playing through as the number 10, despite having played a lot of minutes in the last couple of games. He started the last two, playing, I think it was 89 against Coventry and 84, I believe, against Stoke in midweek. But his returns have been really good in terms of his attacking contributions. And then George Hurst leading the line in place of Azon. And the other change sees Jack Clark on the right. And that is something that we've not seen from the start in quite a while. It hasn't actually happened since that game against Preston North End, where Ipswich Town lost that one 1-0, wasn't it, through the penalty after Jacob Breeze fouled Militin Osmajic. And I spoke to Kieran McKenna after that game, and the vibe was quite negative, but there was a feeling that the club had a lot of work to do in the transfer market, which they did. They went out, they signed Casey McAteer and Nunez and even Azon in that little week period, and Sindramala Rigeli, who also came in. But he spoke after that game and said the balance of the attack was wrong, and he felt it didn't really work. So it is interesting to see that we've gone back to a forward line that has 3 of the 4 starting again. Will it be an improvement this time? You'd hope so, and getting Ipswich's 2 most potent wingers into the team, you can hope would only be a good thing. Would Sindra Valerigelli have started here? Quite possibly. He doesn't because he's unwell. So it's not an injury, he's just ill. We've all got it. I've got a pounding headache at the moment. We've got people that haven't made it to the game because they're unwell. And we've got this flu going around. Hopefully for Sindra, it's not that, and it's a really minor thing, but it's enough to keep him out of this game. So 4-2-3-1, as set out here, with 2 changes. Hurst in for Azon and Jack Clark in for Sindra Valerigelli. There's a little team sheet, if I can hold it up. There you go. Nice, isn't it? I quite like that. So that is the team for Ipswich Town. Let's have a look at the Leicester team, and then we'll take some of the comments. Leicester's starting lineup looks a little bit like this. Again, they've looked to stick with consistency. The biggest reason for that is their injury list, to be honest, because they're turning to youngsters to come off the bench. They're missing a lot of really key, important players who aren't fit, especially defensively, but the attacking options really aren't great, and it's a squad that needs a bit of work, even though the individuals in this team are really talented. Look through and see Abdul Fatawu, one of the best wingers in the division, Navadidi, who hasn't quite turned it on, but you know what he's capable of. Jordan James, somebody who was linked with Ipswich, he ended up coming here on loan from Rennes in France, and I think he's been one of the best midfielders in the Championship so far this season for a side that haven't really kicked it off so far this season. So going through it, Salarchik keeps his place in goal. It's just the one change. So Pereira, the right back, the natural right back, comes in for Hamza Chowdhury, who plays. Who drops to the bench, a natural midfielder. So you come in with a more nominal right back into that role. Nelson and Vestergaard, the 2 centre backs. Thomas at left back, he's quite attacking, so I want to see real thrust down that right side, expose the gaps behind him. That's going to be a big test for Jack Clark today. Then the midfield 2, we'll see James and Skip. Skip's going to have to do a lot of that defensive sweeping work because of the way that Jordan James likes to hover around the edge of the box. He's got, I think it's 2 goals, 5 assists. He's a real, really important player in terms of what Leicester do going forward. And then the attackers, I've mentioned a couple of them. Fatawu, maybe his returns haven't been as good, but my word, he's a good old player. And Leif Davis is going to have a task on his hands to keep things quiet. Bobby Decordova-Reid is someone with plenty of Premier League experience, and of course Championship previously at Bristol City. Navadidi I've spoken about, and Ayu, who I believe scored against Town in the Premier League. Off the top of my head, I think he scored in that Portland Road game. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But yes, again, another experienced head with plenty of Premier League experience now in the Championship. So that is the team. Let's have a look at some of the comments we've got here. I'm just going to have a look at some good afternoon ones here. Good afternoon, Martin. Good afternoon, Legion of Positivity. What a name. That's what I want. A bit of positivity. Good afternoon, Harvey. Hope you're good, mate. Clark on the right worries me. Don't rate him there. Hope I'm proven wrong. It's difficult because I think in terms of what he can do from the start of games, that's now going to be the big test. Coming off the bench, I think he's done well. What does it say about Casey McAteer that he's on the bench against his former club, an £11.5 million signing, and he can't get into the starting lineup when the first choice right winger is out and you're playing a left winger in that role? That is a bit of a concern for me personally about what Casey McAteer's levels are and how he's viewed by the club. But the trust is there in Jack Clark. Off the bench, as I said, I've been quite keen on what he's been able to do from what we saw at the beginning of the season. It didn't work at all. So this is going to be a big test now. If he's going to get minutes and he's not going to have to share as much necessarily, it's going to have to be Philogene and Clark sharing the minutes. If you can play both of them, this is going to have to be it. It's going to have to be Jack Clark on the right, because I think that Philogene is going to be that first choice starter on the left with the season that he's having. So it's a big game for Jack Clark in that sense. I'm not as keen on it either. I hope that there's been some tweaks in training. Let's see what it brings. Obviously, it's something that they would have worked upon, and I think they'll sense as well, as I mentioned, that the left back who's the left back again? We've got Luke Thomas. Is quite attacking. His defensive side isn't as strong, and it's an area that Town are really going to look to exploit today, I would imagine. So let's see. Brilliant. Thank you. I think that's my lovely grandmother telling me that my sound is better, so that's good. Glad to see you're watching at home. Jay Buckle 7992. Get well soon. Gelly, it shows that Jack Clark gets in for McAteer. Yeah, this is the big talking point, I suppose, of the afternoon in terms of the team. Where is Casey McAteer at this stage? And look, Kieran McKenna's come out and praised him before. We looked at the game against Hull, and he kind of highlighted Casey McAteer after that game. But I think it's fair to say that his impact in general hasn't been what Ipswich wanted. It hasn't really worked for him so far this season. He's lacking that kind of spark. I like some of the hard work that he puts in terms of the defensive side. There's quite similar aspect to Wes Burns in a way when you actually look at that. I think we saw quite a bit of that Hull, and then you had the Blackburn performance. That wasn't just him, but I think he didn't take his opportunity at Ewood Park when he really, really needed to, and obviously Sindra did. But the fact that he's not a starter isn't a huge surprise. The fact that he's now not really the backup right winger is probably going to be a concern for him, and maybe a concern for Ipswich given the amount of money that was spent on him. The fact that even in games, we're seeing a lot of the times that an £11.5 million winger is being an unused substitute when Town need a goal off the bench and they're turning to Jack Clark instead, or someone like that to play on the right. So, yeah, really interesting to see what the future holds for Casey McAteer. It's a bit weird to be saying that in December, but it's definitely an area where things are up in the air from an Ipswich Town perspective. Will he get an opportunity off the bench against his former team? What will the reception be like? We'll have to wait and see. Tom says, Comedy Blues, tough game. Feel confident 3 points with that team selection. I think the vibe's quite good in terms of the team. Obviously, not having Sindra even as a bench option is a real blow given the quality that we've seen from him. And I was hoping that I didn't expect him to start this game, to be honest. I thought it would be McAteer, but I was really hopeful that we'd get to see a big impact from Cinderella Egley off the bench in this game. Obviously, not to be with illness. But it's good that the vibes around the team are positive. I think that everyone's happy that you can have changes, but as long as it's not kind of swinging between 6 and 7 every week. I'm sorry, I didn't even do that on purpose, but you know, I mean, 6, 7 changes every single week, or you're changing the whole front four, changing the centre backs, things like that. When you have all of those different kind of things that can really hamper the gelling of this team and of the new signings, things like that, that then becomes more of a problem. So having a consistent team is really good, isn't it? And a couple of changes from the weekend, having Marcelino Nunez fit to go again, that's really good. I'm going to turn the computer around quickly because I always think this is quite interesting. Town here are doing some warm-up drills on the pitch here. They are doing some corner drills, which I don't really see that often from teams, to be perfectly honest. And Ipswich have been quite consistent in doing them recently. Set pieces are a big thing. Town have been hit and miss with them in terms of their attacking set pieces, but the practice goes in and all the fans can see it and everyone can see it here in action, what those training drills look like. You might be able to see the whistle going off in the background. Davis swings one in. Jaden Philogene challenging for a header. Interesting. Here's a cool comment from Arne Frederick Samuelson. What a name. Love it. Sindra much better than any of the others on the right. Yes, he's young, but age doesn't count if you're good enough. He's ill is bad news for the team. It is, absolutely. And I do think that he is the best option on the right. I understand McKenna's points as well about managing his minutes. I think is really important, and making sure that he can settle in without kind of... It's a bit sink or swim, isn't it? And if you force extreme minutes onto a young player coming into a new country and a new league, I feel like that can be a little bit much, especially when you put a lot of responsibility on them. Now, Cinderella Egelli is going to get to a point that he is going to be relied upon to consistently perform and deliver, not just in the Championship, but it will have to be in the Premier League as and when he / Ipswich Town make it up there. So there will need to be a reliance there, but this is still such early days for him. Managing those minutes, I still agree with Kieran McKenna, is really important. So, bad news that he's unwell. I'm sure he'll be back in for Sheffield Wednesday and getting some good minutes over the kind of Christmas period. Of course, home Sheffield Wednesday next week. Then we've got Millwall on Boxing Day and away at Coventry again. Another game against the Sky Blues after that on the 29th, off the top of my head. Yep, that weird 6 o'clock kickoff. I think so. We have a prediction from Eric Clapton who says 2-2. I've gone with a 1-1. I do think this will be a draw. I think that people potentially can underestimate Leicester given the form and given the performances and the general vibe around the club. But there's such good individual quality in this team when you look at the attack. Even the midfield two and the back line, I do wonder whether they might run out of steam. We've obviously seen them in the last couple of games. They've performed really well in the early stages, and then after the break, they've kind of just gone off a cliff a little bit. So maybe it will be one where Ipswich can weather that early storm, ensure that you go into the break at least level, that you can then turn things in the second half when they start to tire, when they turn to the bench and have to bring on quite young players. All of those different kind of things, and maybe playing into the psychology that this Leicester team have not been performing in the latter stages in the second half of games. Got a comment from Andy. Only just come online. Any chat or thoughts that Philogene might start on the right and Jack Clark on the left? Highly unlikely, but just an option. There's always the possibility. I don't think it will happen from the start, but there's always the option to switch things around. It might get to a point where Kieran McKenna thinks that in order to best expose that gap behind Thomas, that Philogene might be better at doing that, and it could be a tactical tweaking game. But I remember that first game against Birmingham, we were all quite confident it would be Jaden Philogene on the right of that side and Jack Clark on the left, and in the end it wasn't, and I can't see that changing when you look at Ipswich making the substitutions in game where they play both Philogene and Clark. It's always Clark who ends up playing on the right and Jaden Philogene staying on the left. So I think it will be pretty much for the whole game, to be honest, unless there's anything tactically quite obvious that needs to change, that we will see Clark on the right. And actually, you can see here now, we're doing some warm-up drills happening in front of us that, interestingly, don't have, that I can at least see Jaden Philogene involved. But some attacking drills, Davis playing fire. Oh, there's Jaden Philogene. I just haven't got the right eyesight today. It shows Jack Clark playing on the right in these warm-up drills. Jaden Philogene on the left, Leif Davis very high up, and Nunez just in behind George Hurst. So if that's what they're doing in the warm-up drills, I'd be very surprised if that changed in the actual game. A lot of Leif Davis inverting in, almost playing alongside George Hurst when he gets the ball in some of these drills. But yeah, Jack Clark on the right from the warm-up drills happening in front of me right now. Good shot from Leif Davis. Coming from Stephen. I'm going to, after this one, we'll have a look through the team again. And then we'll take some more questions for finishing. Stephen says, what's going to happen when Wes Burns is back in the side? One of my favourite players in our last championship campaign. I think Ipswich need the right side of competition. You've got to be so careful with Wes, though. He's been out for almost a year now. He obviously came back in the under-21s game, picked up a bit of a bruised shoe. Wes Burns injury. What was the Wes Burns? He bruised just... No. What did he bruise? He got a cut. There you go. A deep gash on his leg. So it's not one of those kind of nasty muscle injuries. It's not re-aggravated anything. It's just a bit of a freak injury in the under-21s game. So I'm sure that it won't be a big setback for him. But you've got to be so careful with him. That's got to be the priority. When will he come back? It'll be good to see him at the start of 2026. But yeah, manage his minutes, keep him ticking over, and see what he can contribute in the second half of the season. They are missing a player with that kind of burning pace, and that's in this team. I think that's something that's really, really important, and something that I just feel that they're lacking a little bit. yeah, I hope that he gets a good run in the second half of the season. But let's see. I believe his contract's up at the end of the season. There might be discussions on how to progress with that, and that will maybe be kind of dependent on what we see from him in the second half of the season. But we all love Wes Burns. He's great. Such a big fan. And as I said, he's a profile that I think Ipswich are missing in this team. Speaking of their team, we're just going to go over this quickly one more time. Here is that Ipswich Town team. For those who are joining in late, 4-2-3-1, 2 changes. Jack Clark playing on the right in for the ill Sindra Vala Egli, and George Hurst returning for Even Azon. So George Hurst leading the line, having been suspended against Stoke in the week, and Azon dropping to the bench. And then the Stoke team here with one change, Pereira coming in at right back. Other than that, it's the same team that drew 2-2 at Ashton Gate against Bristol City in midweek. Maybe that's also something that has to be considered here. Ipswich were at home, obviously, in the last couple of games where I'm just sorry, I've been thrown by a comment that says there's no sound. I think we're okay. Ipswich were at home in their last couple of games against Leicester City and Stoke City, whereas Leicester against Coventry City and Stoke City, whereas Leicester have been on their travels away at Derby, admittedly down the road, literally, and at Bristol in midweek. And does that take more out of them, out of a slightly thinner squad? We'll have to wait and see. Let's go through a couple more comments. Got away from Steve Peck. I thought that was a snail when I saw it the first time. Johnny Duncan says Leaf and Darnell will have a busy time against their wingers. Good games from them is a must. We're going to come away with anything from this game. Totally agree. The wide players in this team are probably the biggest threats when you look at Leicester. Fatu against Davis is a key battle for sure. And don't discount Navadini, even though he hasn't had the desired season. We're going to have another big test for Darnell Furlong, who stood up really well against Sorba Thomas in midweek. A couple more comments we'll take, and then I'm going to leave you guys to it. Legion of positivity. I hope the sound's okay when you're commenting about the sound. Fingers crossed you can hear me all right. Not a huge Hamza Chowdhury fan, but his recent performances are so good. Can't understand why he's not in the squad. Shed some light on why he's left out. Honestly, no, to be perfectly honest, in terms of what the Leicester situation is, he's on the bench, so I don't think that it's going to be an injury or anything like that. The one thing I would say is ultimately you're swapping a natural right back for a midfielder who's playing at right back. And from Pereira, I know he's had some injury issues, but he's a player that's delivered really well in the Premier League in the past. He is a natural right back. He has played at this club for a long old time, and with some moves away, but has stuck it out here. And you want natural players. You want square pegs and square holes, and round pegs and round holes. You don't want to have to kind of force things the wrong way. And when you have Chowdhury, who's a natural midfielder in that role, maybe that's part of the thinking. But I can't really shed any more light in terms of that. Maybe we'll hear from Marti Cifuentes after the game about it. But yes, it's Pereira starting here. I'm going to do one more question as the players go in, because the game's going to start soon. Andy Cracknell, Crackers, what's your opinion on Davis playing the inverted left back role? I think it's taking away his creative side of the game, where he bombed down the left and the outside and put lovely balls into the box. His assists are well down so far this season. I think that the assists partially is because of a weaker set piece record is one, but the other point, yeah, for sure, his output in terms of numbers is down significantly, and I think a large part of that is because of the fact that he's inverting into midfield, because of the fact that he's taking up very different positions. Stu made a really good point on the podcast post Blackburn, where he thought one of the biggest problems in this team was that left side, and the fact that neither Philogene nor nor Jack Clark can probably play in a way that accommodates Davis best. Davis has been able to get the best out of Philogene, for sure, and even Jack Clark in those cameo appearances. We saw that in midweek. Their partnership's really growing. Does it get the best out of Davis when he has to cut inside as well and play in quite a central area? I'm not too sure. I'm sure it'll be something that Ipswich are working on, whether they see it out with the kind of the inverted fullback experiment, or whether they decide that maybe it's best to get Leif Davis back to his swashbuckling attacking self. We'll have to wait and see. But looking at what we saw on the pitch from these training exercises a few minutes ago, he is going to be inverting into midfield, playing quite a central role. But of course, he does within that also cut quite wide, overlaps with Philogene, overlaps with Jack Clark when he's on the left, those kinds of things. So there you have it. Ipswich Town, Leicester City here at the King Power Stadium. I should say that right, Leicester City, Ipswich Town, because Town are the away team. Stadium starting to fill up a little bit. We're getting some tense pre-match videos and some snazzy music. So there you go, 13 minutes till kick-off. Come follow all our stuff. I know this game is not on TV. Stu's running the live blog, which is for subscribers only this afternoon. So if you're subscribed, come and check that one out. If not, I'm sure we're running a deal. I'm not actually sure what it will be. But if you go check the EADT website, you'll be able to find all the details if we're running a deal. We are also running the Marcelino Nunez shirt giveaway competition. He's been in magnificent form recently. We've got a signed shirt. I think it's the third kit that we've got. We're giving that one away to one of our subscribers, so go check that out. We're also doing another competition which can have you in the press box with us against Preston North End next month. Not this press box, the Portman Road press box. So if you're keen on having the journalist experience coming into that, maybe you'll be the one to win it. Maybe you'll be the one to win the Marcelino Nunez signed shirt. Go check out the website. Go check out our live blog for subscribers only that Stu's running. All of our post-match comments and analysis to come as usual. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.